Good day to everybody. We are meeting again through Ranaweera Associates TaxTalk to discuss the interim budget of Sri Lanka for the year 2022, which is read in the Parliament in this afternoon by Minister Finance. Interim Budget 2022 combined with recently proposed tax reforms 2022. Now, in introduction of the interim budget 2022, the Minister of Finance presented the interim budget 2022 on 30th August 2022 to cover the balance 4 months of the year 2022. In that, he highlighted following 4 aspects. Country's current economic crisis, then causes for the economic crisis. The causes, he has identified 3 main items: short-sighted economic practices, then the business nationalization policy, then poor policies on FDIs. Then the solutions for the crisis. When there's a crisis, there should be solutions. Now, these solutions, here they are mainly what he has announced is that we have to change our mindset to accept and follow the current trends in the world market, modern world market. Now, especially deviate the government involving in businesses. Now, in the modern world, lot of governments are not directly involved in with carrying out of business. Instead of that, they are acting as facilitators for the private sector to carry out the businesses. Then, how to solve this problem? Methods of solving the crisis. He has identified or categorized that into 2. One is short-term solutions, the other one is long-term solutions. The short-term solution, what he has identified is like seeking for IMF support. But the long-term solution, he is proposing that we have to have a national economic policy for a long term, like 25 years. Right. Now, we'll see the gravity of our crisis. Now, in this table, I have given the level of the problem. Now, lot of tax reliefs are given in 2019, and as a result, tax loss around 600 billion to 800 billion per annum. This in year 2019, government announced some reliefs, tax relief, which has cost to the government 600 billion to 800 billion per annum. As a result, now we'll see the effect of that decision. Now, the tax revenue to GDP, in 2019 we had 12.7% tax revenue to GDP, but in 2020 it came down to 9.1. Then in 2021 it came down to 8.7, and beginning of 2022 we can say it as 8.2%. So low. Then budget deficit. Now the budget deficit in 2019 we had 9.6% budget deficit. It went up to 11.1% in 2020. In 2021 it went up 11.6%. Then we'll see the government debt to GDP. The debts, if you'll see the debt in 2019, it was 86.9% of the GDP. Then in 2020, it went beyond 100.6. In 2021, it went up to 106.6. and the finance minister announced in beginning of 2022 it is about 110%. The debt is 110% of the GDP, huge. That means, but the government by 2025, the government is expecting the government target of revenue is 15% of the GDP. They are trying to increase the income up to 15% of the GDP. Now, what are the reasons for these things? As a result of these things, the fiscal imbalance situation occurred, then foreign currency shortage occurred, then the poor credit rating occurred. As a result, Sri Lanka couldn't obtain soft finance facilities from other countries. Then definitely we need to do various things for the recovery. Definitely we need strong fiscal consolidation plan. We have to increase the revenue, reduce the expenses, and we have to have a proper tax administration. Then macroeconomic stability. We have to have a macroeconomic stability. Now in this presentation we will be covering when the finance minister announced this budget speech, he said that all proposals what they have announced during last couple of months, especially latter part of May, they announced various tax proposals, but majority of those things are not yet legalized. Therefore, finance minister announced that they are taking quick action to legalize these things. Basically, they are trying their best to legalize these things within the month of September, mainly to activate these things, majority of those things with effect from 1st of September. Now, we'll talk about these proposals which are to be legalized with relate to the personal income tax, then withholding tax, then the corporate income tax, then value-added tax, social security contribution levy, telecommunication levy, betting and gaming levy, then strengthening of the tax administration system. And this time today he announced some more proposals also. Now we'll look into these things in detail within a short time period. Personal income tax. Now these revisions are to be implemented with effect from 1st October 2022. That means the year of assessment 2021-22, first 6 months we have to apply the existing law, and balance 6 months, once they legalize this, we have to apply the new law. Now with this, today's budget speech, he announced that every resident person who is reaching 18 years of age should compulsorily obtain a tax registration. Every person who is reaching 18 years. Now majority of them may not be liable to income tax, but for the purpose of monitoring, they are proposing to have a tax file. Then reduction of annual personal relief. Now at present we have 3 million annual personal relief. Government is proposing to reduce it to 1.8 million rupees. Then the proposed personal income tax rate. The personal income tax rate, at present we have 6%, 12% and 18%. Only 3 rates are there, basic rates. Now they are proposed, and we have slabs of 3 million each. Now they are proposing the 1.2 million slabs. First 1.2 million at 4%, next 1.2 million at 8%, likewise 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28 and 32%. The maximum rate will go up from 18% at present to 32%. Right. But they are not touching the qualifying payments and relief. Therefore, we feel that the existing qualifying payments and relief will continue. Right. Then we'll move to the withholding tax. Withholding tax, they abolished the withholding tax with effect from 31st December 2019, and they are proposing to reintroduce with effect from 1st October 2022. Now we will see what are the withholding tax. Withholding tax on employment income. Earlier we called it as payee, now we are calling it as APIT, Advanced Personal Income Tax. They are reintroducing with effect from 1st December to 1st October 2022. Now, at present, this APIT is mandatory only on non-resident expatriate employees in Sri Lanka. For others, it is not mandatory. Now, with effect from 1st October 2022, they are proposing to make it mandatory for all employees who are getting more than 1.8 million remuneration per annum. Then, withholding tax, that is advanced income tax on investment income. Now on investment income also, majority of the withholding tax they abolished. Now they are reintroducing as a mandatory requirement with effect from 1st October 2022 on interest 5%, dividends 14%, rent exceeding 100,000 rupees per month 10%. In all other cases, they are proposing to introduce 14% withholding tax. Then advanced income tax on dividend and individuals' interest income are final withholding taxes. In the case of dividends, for anybody it is a final withholding tax, but individuals' interest, in the case of interest, only in the case of individual it will be a final tax. For heavy investors, it is a big benefit for them, right? Now, withholding tax on service payments. If any service where the value exceeding 100,000 rupees per month is they are introducing 5% withholding tax with effect from 1st October 2022. Then relief on interest income for senior citizens. Earlier we had this up to 31st December 2019, then they abolished it. They are proposing to reintroduce this 1.5 million per annum interest income exemption for senior citizens who are above 60 years of age. This is only on interest income of the senior citizens. Then corporate income tax. We'll talk a little bit about corporate income tax. At present, the corporate income tax, the standard rate is 24%. We have concessionary rate of 14%, then standard 24%. For manufacturing, we have 18%. Then on liquor, tobacco, gambling, we have 40% higher rate. Now, the standard rate, they are proposing to increase from 24% to 30% with effect from 1st October 2022. Then, increase in the concessionary income tax rate of 14% to 15%. That is, they are proposing to increase by 1%. Then, the 18% manufacturing rate will continue. At the same time, the higher tax rate of 40% on liquor, tobacco, betting and gaming will continue. As it is, 40% will continue. Then dividends. Dividends paid by a resident company to a non-resident person made liable to income tax with effect from 1st April 2023. At present, all dividends to non-resident persons are totally exempt from Sri Lanka tax. Now they are reintroducing the tax at the rate of 14% as withholding tax at the rate of 14%, but with effect from 1st April 2023. That means non-resident persons should pay 14% tax on the dividend income by way of withholding tax. Then, following income tax holidays under third schedule to the Act be removed, they are proposing to remove certain income tax holidays which are given in the third schedule to the Act. But the effective date they have not announced. We have to wait for the legislation. What are those items? Mainly there are 5 items. There's a 10-year tax holiday on selling of construction material recycled construction material is selling by that recycled company, construction company. There's a 10-year tax holiday for that profit. Now they are announcing that they are abolishing this. Then there's another tax holiday for the individual who has successfully completed the vocational education. If they'll start a business after completing the vocational education, on or after 1st April 2021, there's a 5-year tax exemption. They are proposing to remove that tax exemption on that individual. Then there's a 7-year tax exemption for resident persons on manufacturing of boats and ships in Sri Lanka. They are proposing to remove that also. Then there's an unlimited tax exemption on letting out of bonded warehouses and warehouses related to offshore businesses connecting with Colombo and Hambantota ports. They are proposing to remove that also. Then the last one what they have proposed is 5 years tax exemption on construct and installed communication towers and related appliances and related technical services. There's a 5-year tax holiday. That is also to be removed. Anyway, they have to legalize these things. Then additional deductions granted on expenses, especially marketing and communication expenses. Once you incur marketing and communication expenses, you can deduct 200% as of that expenditure as a deduction. That they are proposing to that additional 100% deduction, they are proposing to remove with effect from 1st April 2023. Then revision the definition of multinational companies, that is to improve the clarity of the tax law. Then making any other connected amendments, required amendments they are proposing. Then we'll move to value-added tax. Now the value-added tax rate could be changed by the Minister of Finance. Accordingly, by publishing a Gazette notification with effect from 1st June 2022, they increased the rate from 8% to 12%. Now the rate is 12. They are proposing to increase from 12% to 15%. Ultimately, they are going back to the original 15%. This to be legalized on 31st night by way of a Gazette notification. Right? Then VAT threshold. They are proposing to reduce the VAT threshold of 300 million per annum to 120 million per annum. This by way of a Gazette notification they can't do, therefore they have to amend the law, therefore they have given a time period for that. This is effective from 1st October 2022. Then reviewing certain VAT exemptions and removal of unproductive exemption. Then removal of VAT exemption on condominium residential apartment. That is, now at present condominium residential apartments are exempted from VAT. But with effect from 1st October 2022, they are trying to make it liable to VAT. Once they claim the input credits, ultimate prices will go up by about 6 to 8%, say. Removal of zero VAT rate on and replacing with 12% on the tourism. Now at tourism businesses, the VAT rate is 0 at present. But here even they announce as 12%, actually this will increase up to 15% because from 1st of September they are increasing the rate. Then making any other related amendments. Right. Then in between they introduce, after March, they propose a special tax called Social Security Contribution Levy, SSCL. Now the bill has already passed, bill has already published, and this bill to be passed in the Parliament. According to this bill, the Social Security Contribution Levy rate is 2.5%. It is to be paid on monthly basis. There are 4 types of businesses liable to this. In the case of import, manufacturing, providing services, then trading. In the case of import, on the 100% of the turnover to be liable to the SSCL at the time of clearing the goods. On all other cases, it is to be paid on monthly basis. On manufacturing, 85% of the turnover to be liable, then providing services, again 100% of the financial services value addition to be liable, then wholesale and retail sale of any article including importation and sale is liable. Now we will see what is the liability of the turnover level. In the case of a distributor of locally manufactured goods, only 25% of the turnover is liable. In the case of wholesale or retail trading of imported or local goods, only 50% of the turnover is liable. Right. Now, what is the effective date? Effective date, actually, they most probably now they have to legalize it. As a result, it will be effective from 1st October 2022. Anyway, we have to wait for the legislation. Now, what is the threshold for this? There's a threshold. The aggregate annual turnover more than 120 million. Aggregate annual turnover more than 120 million during this specified time period. They have given the time period 1st July 2021 to 30th June 2022. That year, if your turnover has gone up beyond 120 million, you will be liable. Then aggregate turnover, the current turnover rupees 30 million per quarter. 30 million per quarter. Originally, they were to charge this from 1st July 2022. Therefore, they mentioned 1st July 2022. But with this delay of legislation, most probably they will change this date to 1st October 2022. Anyway, we will wait for the legislation. Anyway, the current turnover threshold is 30 million per quarter. 30 million per quarter. Then they introduced Telecommunication Levy. They have already introduced that Telecommunication Levy. Earlier, they had 15%. Then with effect from 1st June 2022, previously they reduced it to 11.25%. Again, this 11.25% they increased to 15% with effect from 1st June 22. Now earlier the rate was, originally it was 15, then reduced to 11.25% on 1st December 2019. As a result, they lost 28% of the revenue of the telecommunication levy at that time. It's a bad decision. Then the tax proposal with relate to betting and gaming levy. Now they propose these things to be amended, but from a future date, that is 1st January 2023. They are the increasing of annual levy on the business of gaming. There was an annual levy of 200 million, at present 200 million per annum. They propose to increase it to 500 million per annum. Then increasing annual levy for betting. On betting, there are 3 types of annual levies as applicable. Now, there's a carried through an agent. If you are carrying out your business through an agent, betting business through an agent, that is the principal person. The tax is 4 million per annum. They are proposing to increase it to 5 million per annum. If you are carrying out this business with live telecast facilities, then at present 600,000 per annum, then they are proposing to increase to 1 million per annum. These are annual things. Then small people who are not having live telecast facilities, their current annual fee is 50,000. They are proposing to increase to 75,000. Then increasing the rate of levy on gross collection. On the gross collection, there's another levy on betting. There's 10%. They are proposing to increase this 10% to 15%. Now, we'll see how they are proposing to strengthen the revenue administration system. As all of us know, there are big issues with relate to our tax administration system. Some people says, why should I pay tax? Because so and so other people are not paying tax. Why should I pay? That means there are some weaknesses in the administration system. Therefore, always they are proposing various recovery actions. Right. Now we'll see. Now propose to strengthen the administration system for what? For an efficient tax collection, and to strengthen the tax compliance, and to prevent tax avoidance, Then the mandatory tax registration, as I mentioned, any resident person who is reaching 18 years should get the mandatory tax registration. This is a new proposal. Today they announced this proposal. Then in addition to the tax policy reform, it is proposed to strengthen the revenue administration system at revenue collecting agencies. Because these errors or weaknesses are there mainly in these agencies, with infusion of technology and rigorous tax audits. It's very important. Now, what are the entities selected? Main income generating entities: Sri Lanka Customs, Inland Revenue Department, and the Excise Department. It is very vital and important proposal. Then, with relate to the custom, this time they have selected specially the custom, and accordingly, today the finance minister announced like this. It is proposed to implement recommendations of the Presidential Commission of Inquiry into Sri Lanka Customs. There's an inquiry commission. There's a report on that. In that report, there are so many recommendations. Therefore, Minister announced that they are implementing these recommendations, seeking for efficient and effective tax system in the Sri Lanka Customs. Then, in that, especially to review the multiple tariff rates. Now, some people, due to having multiple tariff rates, some people manipulate and clear their goods, declare their imports under different low tax regimes. Then modernize customs administration through automation, computerization. Then integrated IT systems to streamline the operations of bonded warehouses, because malpractices might happen with connected to these bonded warehouses. Then harmonized of BOI and customs arrangements. Now, in Sri Lanka, the main custom clearance authority is the Sri Lanka Customs. At the same time, BOI also involved with certain clearing activities with relate to BOI registered companies. Section 17, that is full BOI registered company. Now, there are some disagreements among these two parties. Therefore, they are proposing to harmonize of these arrangements. Then, for efficient tax collection, strengthening the tax compliance and preventing tax avoidance. Right. Then, optimize the utilization of government movable and immovable properties. Now, a lot of government properties are just idle, or those properties are using by other people without making a reasonable return on that to the government. Therefore, they are proposing to optimize it by studying those things. Then review the activities on the project officers and units. Now, for various projects, for various units, there are various project office under government entities. But we know there are a lot of malpractices in these project officers and units. Therefore, it is proposed to review these activities of those things. Then introduction of online revenue collection system with the local government authorities. Now some local government authorities, they are still not fully computerized. Then promoting joint venture businesses with local parties for utilization of government resources. As I mentioned, some of these government resources are just idling. Therefore, they propose to have joint venture businesses. Then there's another proposal. This is a questionable proposal. 20% shareholding in state banks to be given to the depositors and employees. What are the state banks? NSB, People's Bank, and mainly NSB, People's Bank, and Bank of Ceylon, mainly. Now, by reading this, for what purpose they are? For capitalization. For capitalization. That means indirectly it says that these government banks are in a bad liquidity situation. To overcome that situation, suppose the depositors withdraw their deposits, those banks will be in a bad scene. Therefore, government is proposing to, instead of returning money to the depositors, government is proposing to give shares of these banks to the depositors. Now, this is a questionable thing, right? Then we'll see other proposals. Reduction of high trade barriers in the form of tariffs. Trade barriers, there are various trade barriers to sort out those things. Then they are proposing to reduce or give concessionary duty rates for electric bikes, importation of electric bikes, or importation of raw materials to manufacture electric bikes. Then they are proposing to give duty concessions on local packaging industry related items to promote local packaging industry for duty concession, like importation of machinery for those things and importation of packing materials and all. Then several new legislation, the finance minister proposed a list of new legislations for the benefit of the economy and for the growth of the country. Then writing off of small farmers' arrears loans. Any farmer who is having, the small farmers who are having arrears loans, not the interest, the loan amount to be written off by the government. Now those banks to be write off those things and claim it from the treasury. Then promoting domestic dairy farming. The domestic dairy farming to be promoted as an import replacement. Now for this, they are proposing to allocate 200 million for that and another 50 million for state land utilization of agriculture. Utilization of state land for agriculture, 50 million rupees. Then renewable energy. Now a lot of people are talking on renewable energy because we see the importance of that with the power cut. Renewable energy sources, expansion of that area and allocate state land for those things. Now in Sri Lanka, due to various red tapes, especially at CEB level, we are facing the development in this renewable energy sector is very weak. There are a lot of red tapes. As a result, now government is proposing to remove all these red tapes and expand the renewable energy, maybe by private sector. For that, the government is willing to release their lands. Then reduce the government and semi-government employees retiring age up to 60 years. Now recently it is increased to 62 and 65 years. Again they are reducing it to 60 years with effect from 31st December 2022 this year. Then parliamentary committee, they are proposing to introduce a parliamentary committee to establish and to closely deal with the issues raising with the government revenue. Then a new central bank act for various weaknesses, to remove those things and introduce a new act. Then the Minister of Finance is proposing to have an Inspector General. In United States, there's a system of Inspector General for regulatory mechanism. Now, Finance Minister is proposing to have a thing like that, finance regulatory mechanism. Then, electric vehicles in future, when a governmental institution is importing any vehicle, it says that they are allowing only electric vehicles. Then, state-owned enterprises restructuring program, mainly Sri Lankan Airlines, CEB and CPC. Due to bad management, especially these three entities has become a big burden to the economy. Therefore, government is proposing to state-owned enterprise restructuring. Now, restructuring means mainly what should happen is to give the management to the private sector. For this, they are proposing 200 million, allocation of a 200 million for this 4 months time period. Then establishing a national debt management agency under the treasury for the government debt management. Then for this Maha season, agricultural Maha season, they are proposing to allocate 40 billion for the agriculture requirements. At the same time, they are proposing to reduce the fertilizer prices because they removed the import ban on artificial fertilizer, chemical fertilizer, and if they release some foreign currency, people will import fertilizer. As a result, the prices will come down. Now, as an example, a 50 kilogram urea bag, it was about 3,000 rupees. It went up to 35,000 rupees. Even at present, the market, it is selling at about 30,000 rupees. Right. Capital expenditure priority to be given, mainly the priority to be given for education, health, digitalization, public sector and social security. For those sectors, they are trying to give the priority of capital expenditure. Then provide relief for fishing and estate communities. Especially these two sectors are badly affected with the high prices of kerosene. And as a result, they are proposing to provide some relief. Then railway services also to be improved with the support of the private sector. Then funds allocation to help for transport of fresh vegetable and fruits to Colombo through railway. That's a good proposal. Then for a program to attract high-end tourists to Sri Lanka. For that, a 5-member committee to be appointed. A committee to be appointed to study this and activate it. Then an amount of rupees 300 million has been allocated for the development of several tourism industry projects in Sri Lanka. Tourism industry projects in Sri Lanka. Then 2,500 rupees per month, rupees 2,500 rupees per month to be given to pregnant mothers. Now they are getting 20,000 rupees. In addition to 20,000 rupees, they will be getting another 2,500 rupees. Then for Samurdhi beneficiaries also, and the elderly and disabled persons, now there's an allowance of 5,000 rupees per month. Now they are proposing to increase it to 7,500 rupees a month. Then low income earning families, now they are proposing to give 10,000 rupees per month for next 4 months time period. These are the main proposals what they have given in this current budget, today's budget, along with the recent past tax announcement. Now, most probably they will legalize all these things within the month of September to activate these things with effect from 1st of October 2022. Now, for genuine taxpayers, what we should do? Government needs the taxpayers' support because the country is in a bad scene. Therefore, we should pay the correct tax on the correct time. That is our responsibility. We'll fulfill our responsibility, seeking that the government will fulfill their responsibility. We'll wait until they legalize. Then if there are any changes at the time of legalization, at that point we will see those things, right? Then I would like to thank you for your study of our video. If you have any further queries on these videos, or if you want to get any clarification on these things, we have given our contact telephone number and our email addresses for you to communicate with, to get connected with us. Okay, thank you very much.